So now it's about leaks. Here we go. So the first and most dangerous leaks of all are gasoline leaks. George Doris in Tennessee had a bunch of pre-war cars, and he had a gas tank whose sending unit was not sealed tightly to the tank, and every now and then a drip would come out of it and hit the garage floor. During the one winter, this must have been around 1980, he went out into his garage, fired up his space heater, and he said, "I heard this thump." Looked around, he thought, what in the world was that? He looked and looked, and he finally said he got down his hands and knees and looked underneath the cars. And underneath the car with the gasoline leak, he said it was burning off the concrete like a sterno can. So by the time he lived out in the country, by the time the fire department got there, a third of his house was gone and some of his cars were gone. So you don't fool around with a gasoline leak. Now, out of the tank, that's the worst kind of leak. Um, Out of the carburetors, it can only leak out what half a cup of gasoline, and it's done leaking, and it's going to cause an awful lot of problems. But a gasoline leak out of the tank. So whenever you're down there, always take a look at the sending unit and look for the staining around the sending unit. There should never be a drop of raw fuel anywhere around that sending unit. No, no, no. So it's if it's an early style tank, a T-type, an MGA, early style midget that mounts from the top. Those don't leak, but they can slosh out. Um, those take number two Permatex, used to be called number two Aviation, but it's real sticky. Oh my gosh, it's horrid stuff, but it works great. And on the later ones, the MGBs, the MGCs with the ring, the ARA 1501 and '02, just gob it up with a lot of grease. So when you put it in and turn it clockwise and tighten it up, it does move really easily and causes the compression that keeps the system from leaking. So those are gasoline leaks. Sometimes the carburetors will overflow during operation, and that's from dirt in the needle and seat. Maybe it dumps out on the ground. Maybe you smell it. Maybe it goes into your charcoal canister if it's got emission stuff on it. Anyway, the gasoline leaks that you want to be really, really cautious of are out of the gas tank. All right, next one, brake fluid. So now we're going to keep your car from burning up in the garage, but we got to make sure your car stops. So brake fluid, there's a wonderful picture of brake fluid leaking on the inside of a TD wheel. I saw that down in Florida. It's the radial pattern. Just, it's there it is, and it puddles by the wheel. You can see if your wheels are painted, nothing takes off paint faster than zip strip, but brake fluid. So brake fluid is a really, really great thing for stripping paint. You'd never use it for that purpose. But oh my gosh, when it leaks, it makes such a mess. So leaking out of the master cylinder, lots of MGAs leak out of the master cylinders. They rarely leak out of the wheel cylinders. Silicone brake fluid leaks a lot. It leaks out of the master cylinder on the MGAs. When you go to the show and you see the guy with the MGA and it's all real nice and his under bonnet is just perfect. It's so beautiful. You could put your ham sandwich down on his heater, around his heater box, and pick it back up and eat it without any fear of getting poisoned. He's got silicone fluid in it. And if you look carefully, lots of the guys have got a little sponge, just a little tiny sponge they put underneath the master cylinder that catches the silicone fluid as it drips out. If you're really cheap, I suppose you can take that sponge and put a funnel on the master cylinder and squeeze it back in. I wouldn't. But that kind of fluid leak is only dangerous from the standpoint of losing your brakes. But if it puddles near the wheel or you see it radially flung out on the inside of the wheel, that's a problem with the brake fluid. Another,
John,
yes,
question for you. With the silicone brake fluid, is that just for the T's, or is that inherent on all master cylinders with silicone fluid?
the almost all the master cylinders have got some, if you read the instructions down in there, some plates it says, not guaranteed with silicone fluid. I don't know, because it's slipperier, because the molecules are smaller. I don't know why silicone fluid breaks through the seals, but it does. It just
Okay.
doesn't hurt the paint when it does. That's its single advantage. There's no other reason to have silicone brake fluid. But if you got a T-type, it's leaking underneath out of the master cylinder. Who cares? Drips on the ground. If you got MGB, those don't seem to leak, but MGAs certainly do. They do,
Because
and you just have to get along with it.
I've got a 60 60 Sprite.
Same master cylinder, so it's
Same master cylinders. Yeah, that's what and when I got it, it came with that. It came with the silicone, and I haven't given it any thought of changing it, but
it,
I just wanted to.
if it's working, if it's work, just make sure that your level's high, and because you never want, duh, you never
Yeah.
want to run out of brake fluid.
Yeah, no,
So.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
My own MGA had developed a leak in one of the pucks. It's a twin cam braking system, Dunlop brakes. And there's a puddle around the left front wheel. So I've got to get that sorted out quickly so I can get my MGA up to Traverse City to GT50. Didn't get on the road last year because it had a brake leak. Someone asked me, they said, "Well, don't you know somebody who can fix the brakes on your car?" I said, "Yeah, but there's a bunch of customers in line in front." So the next guy
It's funny
up,
you said that on yours, John, because my twin cam, that's just not a couple years old, and I already got those streaks on the wheel.
where'd those cylinders come from? You get those rebuilt or you
I
rebuilt?
did. I did. I had them sent out and sleeved.
Okay. So most of the sleevers will say not guaranteed with silicone fluid, and that's why.
Yep.
But just clean it off, and of course the silicone's going to get on the brake pad somehow, but it's what are you going to do? I mean, it's either going to ruin the
Keep
paint on
topping
your,
it up.
yep, do that, or you ruin the paint on your firewall by using the fluid that doesn't leak. It's frustrating.
John,
Yes,
um, is all silicon fluid compatible with paint? Somebody told me .5, so I put .5 in the car, but .5.1 is what I bought. And it
Uh-oh.
ain't paint just
I
as
have
Uh-oh.
bad.
no idea. I have no idea what 5.1 is.
5.1 is glycol, just like .3, different molecule, but still a glycol. It'll eat paint.
It
Five
really ain't paint, yes.
Why would they label it 5.1 if 5 is silicone? Well, no, that's
They're in cahoots with the collision centers.
okay. Okay. All
That's
right.
probably right. But it is totally incompatible. If he put 5.1 in a system that mostly 5, he's got a mess because they don't mix.
It'll turn into white crystals.
Oh,
I was helping a guy in Alexandria, Virginia with his TC, and I don't know, at some point I don't know, he put in silicone and then he put in real, and then put in silicone. I don't know. But I was trying to bleed it. I got the vacuum pump out, the squeezer, tried to bleed, nothing. Finally took the master cylinder off the car, and the master cylinder bore was filled with this powdery white stuff, which must be the result of those two brake fluids combining. So yeah, you want to keep real brake fluid, which I would describe as .3 and .4, distinctly separate from .5 and apparently from .5.1. So
John, rather than a sponge to put under your under your brake, under your master cylinder,
yeah,
the top to a spray can fits perfectly underneath it,
there's that little hole in the on the underside in that
right?
trapezoidal.
And it fits right in that little hole. It goes right underneath, and you don't have to worry about leaking all over the place. It drips in a cup, and you can see it. And either you can put a paper towel in it to catch it, or you can pull it back out and dump it out and put it in. At least that way, it doesn't eat paint.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
found that too
And
many.
then if you're really cool, you can get the colored cap that matches the color of your car, right?
You could do that,
So
yes.
you,
Now you said this last weekend, John. There's another issue with silicone, and I wanted to tell you about it. So out in that GOF, my brake switch stopped working,
yes,
and I had 12 volts to it, and with the pedal depressed, I had no 12 volts out of it. It started working on the way home.
go figure.
Yeah, what's that about? So
Yep, silicone fluid is not pressure switches are not happy with silicone fluid. They're happy for a while, and then they start carrying so little current they won't light up the rear lights, but they will trip a relay. So you put a relay in the circuit. You can do that
I did.
very carefully down underneath, and that'll continue to work for a while, and then that quits working too. But switching them out is pretty easy, and this is only on MGAs. So, well, anything with a pressure switch, there B is up through 67 Spridgets.
John, is there any way to be able to tell if there's what fluid is in the system? Do we have any kind of litmus
If
paper
you
we can
can,
put
if
in?
you can, if you can withdraw it out of with some sort of syringe that's clear, silicone fluid is purple. It's colored purple, so you know that it's a different kind of look.
But
Uh,
guys, I got a question.
yeah,
Why are you guys using these modern fluids in these old cars? Why don't you just use .3, which is probably what they were intended for?
because the dot three chews through the paint in a minute when you spill it. And especially a lot of this has been surrounding MGAs, and the filler cap is about that far away from the
Yep.
fender, from the fender and the bonnet lip, and you've got to have the world's steadiest. It just if you own the car for 5 years, you're going to be putting fluid in it. You're going to miss, and it gets on the paintwork and it ruins the paint. So
What
that
about what about MGBs?
doesn't seem to be a problem with leaking or anything like that. It's still silicone fluid is still great on MGBs. It's great. It doesn't seem to leak out of the cylinder. And again, when you spill it, if you develop a leak, it doesn't take the paint off. The single advantage to silicone fluid is that it doesn't eat the paint.
But I hear all these other obstacles like issues with fenders and issues with other things.
So what's
Um,
what's so what's cheaper to change the sending unit or to put a little cap under your master cylinder or repaint the firewall?
yeah, okay, got it.
Path of least resistance. So
Is the silicon non-hygroscopic?
no, you can still get water in there, and it still separates. So apparently, it doesn't absorb the absorb or adsorb. I'm not sure which. The water quite as easily as the three or four, but you should, in any case, bleed your brakes on a regular basis. What does that mean? Once a year, once every 2 years,
Every 2 or 3 years.
pump it through. Pump it, you get through three or four pumps out of each corner, and it pushes all the water which may have collected and is sitting in the bottom of the master cylinder, a steel line, the wheel cylinder, and expels it. So maybe we should have a Zoom session on brake fluids. The next one is antifreeze, and that's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's either a loose hose clamp or a hole in the radiator, or worse, you can have a leak between the block and the head, stuff like that. And you can stop most radiator leaks. I'm going to use that mute all button. I got some background noise here. There it goes. Um, you can reduce pressure leaks simply by taking the radiator cap loose and letting it just sit on top of the radiator or the expansion tank and not pressurize the system. You don't need to pressurize the system. Pressurizing the system raises the boiling point. But if you've got antifreeze in there already, the boiling point's raised. And if your car is only running at 200, 212 degrees, it doesn't need to be pressurized. For every 3 pounds or for every pound of cap, you get 3 degrees of of raising the boiling point, just like a pressure cooker on your stove. And so you've got a 10-pound cap that'll push the boiling point up another 30 degrees. But you don't need that usually in any case. And if you got any kind of leak, you can just slow the leak even out of a water pump, slow it down dramatically by um, relieving the pressure on the cap. But finding the leak is pretty easy. The one weird leak on an MG, on a B or a midget or an A, is where the hose, you think of the hose, goes onto the fitting on the heater matrix, and there's a clamp around the hose, and the hose abuts the metal on the heater box. So if it starts to leak, it isn't going to leak down the front of the heater box. Usually, it squirts into the inside of the heater box. But that's really obvious when that's happening because you get that sicky sweet smell, and the inside of the windscreen gets all fogged up with that greasy antifreeze. But we're talking about leaks on the ground. So antifreeze leaks are pretty easy to take care of. So that leaves oil leaks.
Don, why do they have pre-mixed? Why would you buy pre-mixed versus concentrated?
What's that? Say
Why would you
again?
buy why would you buy a pre-mixed antifreeze versus concentrate?
Oh, because it's supposedly mixed with deionized water because it's got the right 50-50 solution. And when you go to put it into your car, you're not going to get it 50-50. And that is the optimum combination of antifreeze and water to lower the freezing point. So that's why you might choose to do it. So
John, just a correction there. It's distilled water, not deionized. If you put deionized water in the tank, it'll actually pull the metals off of the tank and out of the tank to actually come to equivalent
okay.
equilibration.
Not necessarily. Most modern
Well,
antifreezes have corrosion inhibitors in there to offset that.
okay, but that's interesting. That's interesting. I had used
So
deionized and distilled interchangeably because that's what it says in the grocery store when you go in and buy a gallon. It doesn't say distilled, often it doesn't say distilled water, it says deionized water, and
yeah,
that's safe to put in your battery. I
yeah.
understood.
In a battery, it's fine because the extra ions are only going to not a
Okay,
problem because that's going to conduct electricity, and you need those ions to conduct. Deionized water is nothing. Are no ions. So what it
okay,
happens is to find its equilibration, it'll actually pull the ions off of different things,
okay,
and it'll actually etch metal.
okay.
It'll actually do damage to that. So anytime you do anything with any that has water circulating in it, you never put DI water. You never put deionized water. It's distilled water.
I will use the word distilled now from now on.
Yeah,
Okay,
I take, that's my
okay.
business, John. So I take a little exception to
Well,
that.
okay.
So it's the amount of dissolved solids that you really want to eliminate, and both of them get 4, 5, 6 orders of magnitude of reduction in dissolved solids, which would plate out on a heat transfer surfaces if they get too hot and you allow vaporization to occur. So using either deionized or RO permeate or distilled water on an old engine, it's probably a good thing because you're going to dissolve some of the calcium that salts that you've deposited over 40 years. But you don't have to worry about corrosion as long as those inhibitors are supposed to last 4 or 5 years
Okay.
in the antifreezes.
Okay.
Somebody they asked about how to determine the brake fluid, and you referred to the color out of the bottle. It's been my experience that the silicone fluid starts purple but turns yellow over the years.
Okay.
But the big difference is it's immiscible in water. So you add a little water, you're going to get the meniscus there, and you're just going to not. It's totally miscible in water. So it pull a little out, pour it in a cup, and swish it around or in a glass. If you can see the interface, it's silicone. Otherwise, it's glycol.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. That's cool. Thank you very much. Now we're going to switch over to oil. because that's where all the that's where all the leaks are. We'll start at the rear axle because that's pretty easy. So the rear axle has got at least three places that it might leak, four maybe if there's a gasket that's gone faulty. So there's hub seals out on either end. Remember that the hub seal on a TD is the same as the hub seal on a 1980 MGB. There's a lot of continuity here, and those just go bad after a while. So there's a little collar on the half shaft that rides inside the seal, against which the seal rides. And whenever you're doing any kind of brake work, you should pop that little collar off, polish him up, put some grease on him, put a new seal in, tap him back in. Not so easy on the pinion seal. Now, the pinion seal, that is the seal that the drive shaft goes to the flange and goes into the front of the differential from the back of the gearbox. That's on the T-type, the MGA, all the banjo rear axles, the midgets. You can take an air gun, rattle gun, blow the nut off, bing, take a hammer, tap the flange off, easy schmeezy, pop that seal out of there, put a new seal in, clean up the contact surface on the flange, get it really nice and bright, use Scotch Brite, use some 600 paper, something, make it just mirror smooth, gob a bunch of grease on it, put it back together, wipe off the extra grease, and rattle the nut back up tight, you're home free. On the MGBs and MGCs with the Salisbury or tubed type or GT type, different names for the same differential, there's a collapsible collar on the inside. So you can't just rattle it all the way tight because you can end up, if you rattle it too much, the differential flange won't turn. It'll be the preload will be way too great. So on those, which are the more common ones, you want to take a paint pencil and make a nice big mark or two with a paint pencil, or people say we use whiteout, but I didn't even know you could buy whiteout anymore. That you know what I mean, that some kind of marker, and put it on the nut and on the inside of the flange so that when you put it back together, you can be assured that you're getting it back into the same spot. That presupposes that you're putting the flange back on the pinion in the same spot. So there's a couple different marks you have to make, and just tighten it up to where the nut used to be and just a couple of degrees more to account for the wear to give the differential some more preload. So the MGB differentials, the Salisbury diffs are very durable, but once they start to make noise or howl, it's just easier to get a whole nother differential. Easy enough to find when remember that all the differentials change in width between disc and wire wheel. You can run into a big snag if you're trying to use the wrong one. The wheels won't fit on the car. Anyway, and then on the Salisbury diff, that late model MGB and MGC diff 1965 through 1980, there's a pretty good sized gasket on the back that hardly ever leaks, but sometimes it does. So you can take that off and peel the old gasket off and use your RTV silicone sealant or the right stuff or ultra black or Permatex #2 or something, some good goo on there, and put a new gasket on and get that tightened back down. They never leak from the drain plug. It looks like they're leaking from the drain plug, but they're not. That's just the bottom. So that's where the oil ends up going. So there's only these several places that it leaks from in the rear axle, way out on the wheels, and at the differential in the front, and maybe the gasket. There are these weird circumstances where the inside, where the vent can get plugged up. Hardly ever on anything beyond a T-type. But a T-type only has like an 1/8 inch hole in the top of the left-hand side of the axle housing, the tube that goes out. There's a hole right up at 12 o'clock. Can't see it unless you got a mirror. That's got to be open. If that's closed, then as the rear axle starts to operate, it gets warm. The air gets warm, it comes under pressure and it blows oil out of someplace. So you have to make sure that it's vented. Next guy up in line is the gearbox. Just offhand, they hardly ever leak. They can leak out of the front seal. It's pretty weird. If you're doing a clutch today on an MGB, MGA, anything, change the front seal. Just do it. Just do it. And the rear seal is just a horror to change on almost all the cars without the gearbox out of the car. You can do it. It's just a bugger. Sometimes you have to. Then, of course, there's seals. Almost all the overdrives always have a drip of oil down there. All you can do is take your 7/16 and half-inch box end wrench, your ring spanners, and tighten up everything you get your hands on. So now we're up to the engine, and that's where probably 90% of all the oil comes from. And it comes out of the engine for a couple of reasons. There are what I call passive leaks. That is, it leaks while it's running, but not from a pressure. There are pressure leaks having to do with the oil filter, stuff like that. Those are really dangerous because I don't know how many drops there are of oil in a gallon of gasoline. Rich Caldwell will probably look it up and tell us, but um, there are only so many drops, and if you've got a drop dripping out every 30 seconds, you're only going to drive so far before you run the sump out of oil. So pressure leaks are like a leak in your artery, in your body, and they're really horrible, and you cannot have those. Those make a terrible mess. Most commonly, it's around the oil filter. Sometimes one of the hoses is loose, fittings loose, um, stuff like that. Then you've got these what I call passive leaks, and that is when the engine's still running and the oil's being thrown around everywhere on the inside of the engine. I mean, it's just a a jungle of oil being cast everywhere on the inside. So you've got a front seal that on the T types is asbestos rope. On an MGA is felt. In almost all cases, in all cases you can upgrade to a seal. On a T type, it's a 14005 Chicago rawhide lipped seal. You got to fiddle around a little bit to get him in there, but boy, that'll cut down the leaks at the front. In the rear, though, there's no seal. Not till the 18GB engine in 1965. Everything else uses a scroll thread. The midgets use a scroll thread through 1974. 75 through 79 with the midget 1500s, they're using a Triumph engine. That's got a rear seal. But prior to that, the three main Bs, all the MGAs, the T types have got a scroll thread, and it screws the oil back in the engine. Seems kind of antiquated. It is, but it does work. But it requires careful machining. So when you're having your engine rebuilt, that's the only time that you can attend to this, and you get the bottom end of the engine a line board, or you purchase an aftermarket seal. I have had less than satisfactory um, results myself with rear oil seals, aftermarket oil seals. But Glenn at Glenn's MG Repair in St. Petersburg, Florida, says he loves the rear seals on T types. He says it just takes half a day to get it set up. You got to be so very careful. If you're careful,
Oh, it's funny you say that, John, because I have one on my 1600 and it doesn't work at all.
that's yeah. I'm unfamiliar with the MGA seals.
I bought it from Moss years ago, but I put one on that TD that I had at 53 and it didn't leak a drop.
Okay, well, you took enough time to do it, so that's a help. Then the other common area that they leak out of is the side covers. So all the midget engines, the 10 the 9 CGs, the 10 CGs, those have all got side covers, as do the MGAs and MGB engines, and MGC engines. And those love to leak. They love to leak out of the side covers, out of the front side cover most usually. So you can make a new gasket. The gaskets that are available are either too thick. They shouldn't be more than, oh my gosh, an eighth of an inch of cork. And some of them are too small, so you got to stretch them to get on. They don't fit right. You can just buy some cork from Napa, roll it out, make a nice wide edge all the way around the front tappet inspection cover, and gob both sides of it with the right stuff, with ultra black, with something like that, so that it's well sealed, and then it won't leak. Then there's the valve cover. The valve covers leak. So when you look underneath the car, I just had a guy call me not too long ago, and he says, "Oh, I gotta, can I change the sump gasket on my MGB without lifting the engine out of the car?" The answer is yes. But I said, "Why are you changing the sump gasket?" And he says, "Well, because it's leaking." I said, "No, it's not. The sump gasket doesn't leak. I mean, there's exceptions to every one of my rules, but the sump gasket doesn't leak." It's because the oil's leaking down from the side cover, the oil's leaking from the valve cover, it's leaking from the oil filter housing, and it looks like from the front seal. All oil moves down and all oil moves to the rear because of the airflow. So when you see the oil dangling off the back of the engine, it isn't because it's leaking from there. The leak started way up behind the thermostat housing, and somehow that oil has crept all the way down there. If you want to find out where the oil's leaking from, go to Napa. I ought to be a salesman for Napa. Go to Napa, buy the oil dye, put the dye in. You can use this dye in your radiator. You can use it all kinds of places, but it's perfectly fine to mix with the engine oil, and then go out and run your car for 10 miles. Come back, get out your black light left over from your hippie poster days, or beg, borrow, and steal a real black light, and look at the engine when it's a little darker. Put a blanket over your head or over the bonnet, and look in there, and wherever it's leaking oil, it will fluoresce like an electric banana. It is, you just go, it's there. It's leaking from there. And that saves a whole lot of fiddling around and buying stuff you don't need. Diagnose the problem first. There's yet another problem, and that is that was my big picture on top of the constant contact communication that I sent out, that piston with a hole in the side. All the engines are designed to handle a certain amount of blow-by. Not all the compression stays above the rings. A little tiny bit of it gets past the rings. But when you've got a great big slit in the side of the piston, then all that compression that's up above is exposed to the inside of the engine, and some of it gets into the inside of the engine. The inside of the engine can begin to really pressurize. And if it does actually pressurize, because the blow by can't get out, it will blow oil out of every seal and every gasket, no matter how carefully they were installed or how new they are. So if you've got a pressurizing system going on, that's it. When you do have oil stains on your floor, you can use liquid Tide. I've used that. I think you can use 409 and scrub it. You never get it all off. Somebody's still going to be upset. Your father-in-law, your wife, whoever, your friend, have asked to store your car in their garage for a couple of months. So, like that picture in that constant contact communication, get some big pans, get some great big pans, put kitty litter in them, unless you got a cat, and then the cat can mistake it for his favorite place, or just a piece of cardboard, and it will absorb the oil. T-types have a particular leaking problem out of that rear slinger, out of the scroll thread, the Archimedes screw thread on the back of the crank. And so some people used tins, like sardine can tins, fashioning a little bracket onto it. And you can put it right underneath that split pin that comes out from underneath the gearbox. That split pin is supposed to be loose and rattle around like that, so it keeps that hole open so the bell housing doesn't fill with oil should something go wrong. So they put the little tin underneath that, And then when you're driving down the road, the air catches the oil in the tin and whisks it out, undercoats the underside of your car. And then when you turn the car off and all the oil's caught up inside the bell housing, and it over the next couple of minutes, it all sort of drools down and out. It'll drool into that little can. And there were actually people selling those cans. It looked cool. Even one with a drain cock on it is cool stuff. So anyway, that's about it. Well, what have I
John,
missed? Yes.
could you say a little bit more about using that dye? I've heard of it, but I've never used it.
Uh,
You implied you could use it in lots of different
yeah, you
places.
can use it in the cooling system. You can use it in air conditioning. You can use it. Yeah, it's Napa has a house brand called Balkamp, Balkamp. I was going to look it up today. If Marty was on, see, she'd look it up and get the Balkamp part number for the dye. But you just pour it in the top of the engine and just leave it there.
You,
It'll be there after the next oil change too. But it's just so helpful in pinpointing where that leak is.
oil or coolant.
Yeah.
Thank
Yep.
you.
You're welcome.
You can get a bottle of that for less than $10 on Amazon,
Okay.
along with a UV flashlight for about the same. That's what I.
Yeah, those UV flashlights cheat though. They well, I don't know. Maybe they're LEDs now, but
They are.
the old ones had like a purple filter in front, and it's like, well, you're getting some black light out of there.
There's about 25, 30 LEDs in it.
Okay.
John, one other leak that can happen. The machinist did not install properly the one of the freeze plugs on my TD.
Oh,
And let me tell you, that's not a leak. That's a torrent.
yeah, yeah.
Fortunately, I was not far from the house, and a buddy was coming up behind me, and he said on the walkie-talkie, Judd, what's your temperature read? And I looked down, and it was going down to about 65. And we had gone through a pretty hard run. I mean, it was running 95 up there in that range. And of course, what had happened was there was no water around the temperature sensor. So it was just dropping like crazy. I pulled over to the side. We didn't do any harm, I don't think, and got it back. You have to drop the fender to
Oh,
put that in, and you have to have. I was looking for the picture. I can't find it. We used about a 6 foot long iron pole and a sledgehammer to tap it in. These were the brass ones from Tom Lange,
oh yeah.
and he very kindly sent me a fresh one. And he was afraid I was thinking it was his seal that had gone bad, but it wasn't. The one that was put in was not dimpled at all.
Okay.
I was able to find it. It just was improperly done. So that'll do it.
What I do when I'm building an engine is you put that hemispherical freeze plug, Welch plug, core plug. They're really core plugs because it's where the sand casting was held inside, and you flatten them out just a bit, and then around the outside circumference, not on the inside, not between the freeze plug and the block, but on the top side of the freeze plug and the block, you put a smear of JB Weld. And if you're building the engine's lying on its side, that stuff's pretty plastic and it goes pretty smooth. And then when it's all done, you can take a sanding block, and if there's a little ridge, get rid of the ridge. And once it's painted, you just never see it. And there's no way that you're going to blow one of those things out after it's been installed properly, and it's got that ridge of JB Weld around the outside. We've been doing that for a long, long time because it's just, oh my gosh. When in 77, Greg Purvis, who I worked with for years at the University Motors, he bought he traded Jerry Gogan, MGA twin cam coupe for a TF. And we thoroughly expected to get in the TF and drive it home, but it was missing the rear freeze plug. Oh my gosh. So in another world, you take a hole saw and just drill a hole and put the freeze plug in, drive it in, but you can't do that to an MG. You got to take the toe board out. Oh my gosh. So the tunnel's out, the toe board is out. And Ricky Smith from, where's he? Connecticut? Where's he from? Rick Smith. He was he was there until 2 o'clock in the morning putting that thing in. That's a horrible one to lose. On an MGA, it's a horrible one to lose. But on an MGB, losing that rear freeze plug, if it pops out of position, you can put another one in and sandwich some washers and some nuts and a bolt and screw the bolt through the rear plate, which has got a hole big enough to accept some washers in the bolt, and push that freeze plug into place and just leave the bolt there so that it can never come out.
What my PO did was put a big rubber plumber's plug in the rear hole, which ultimately deteriorated and blocked up all the water passages. And so I recommend against that. Put a proper plug in.
Okay.
John, could you
Doug,
address that oil canister? I have to admit that oftentimes I don't change both rings. Do you suggest that we do so when we're changing the oil and filter?
well, you should. But that the ring that's between the block and the filter, either 67B or something,
Yes, 67B.
the ring that's in the filter head is it seems to deteriorate faster than the one that's in the block. The one that's in the block, the cross section, the rectangular cross section on that is pretty massive. But certainly change the one in the filter head, maybe not the one in the block. Theoretically, and in the early days, the filters all came with 3 or 4 different rings. Now it comes with 2 or 3 rings, none of which seem to be quite the right size for your application. So, in some of those, I've had people talk to me before and they say, no, there wasn't a ring in the block. The filter head was up there without the ring. I said, no, it wasn't. Because if it was up there without the ring, all of your oil would be on the ground in 2 minutes. You have to have a filter. Well, it feels like it's steel. I said, well, that's how old the ring is. So sometimes you need something like an awl with a hammer to drive it and pierce the thing and peel it out, and then put the new one in. Just gob it with grease. I love grease. Gob it with grease in between the filter head and the block, and then between the filter head and the can. So I would change at least the bottom one, maybe not the top one, every time you change the filter.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, John, John Gerard from Yardley, CA. Just a quick story. I have a 79B and I put an oil cooler in the front. And after I had finished the restoration, I was driving to a friend's house and the alternator pulley rubbed up against the oil cooler line and cut like a surgical slice in it. And my engine bay was treated to a nice oil cooler.
No
To this
problems with
day, I still
rust in
haven't
your
gotten.
engine bay now, huh?
Yes,
Oh my
exactly.
gosh. Yep.
Yeah,
So
that
yeah,
was
you just all that kind of stuff, you just have to look at it so carefully. My
yep.
associate, Carl Heidemann at Eclectic Motorworks in Holland, Michigan, had a guy, I want to say he had a TR6. I think that's what Carl said. And the guy, he put an oil cooler on it, and the car just ran like shit. Just is horrible. And the guy just spent thousands of dollars at some other shop, and they couldn't get it to run right. And he brought it to Carl and said, "Just tear all the stuff off it and put this next Go Fast thing on it." And Carl said, "Just calm down. Let's just take a look at it first." And one of those braided oil lines that looked so cool was too close to the ignition coil, something like that. And
Oh, sure
it was
did.
jumping the spark I don't know, angle the engine right or take a right hand turn or something or other, and
Yep.
the car would run like shit for a while. And all Carl did was move the hose. Bingo, is taken care of. But anyway, thank you very kindly for positioning of those hoses.
Very important. Yep.
John,
John, I had that same problem. They got a leak in the oil line, and it was like 10 o'clock at night. I called a mechanic friend, and he wasn't going to go to a shop, so he said, go to the drugstore, get some first aid tape, and wrap it around several times, and it was fine. I drove it home, didn't leak anymore. That,
Oh
that
my
I just
gosh.
that's just a temporary fix, but it worked.
Okay. All right. First aid tape.
Wow.
Okay. Tony, you were wanting to say something.
yeah, that die that you're talking about at Napa is 765-2661. It's a UV die
I gotta memorize this. 765.
dash
Hey, Richard.
2661.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm just sitting at home listening to John Twist talk about MGs.
And here comes our
I
mute all.
decided to
That's why I've got that's why I got the mute all button here. Okay.
John, hi, this is Doug. I have a couple of oil leak stories, if I could tell them quickly.
Okay.
I had, I guess it was about 2 years ago, there was a slight leak at my oil cooler, right at the cooler, one of the hoses, I forget which one. Anyway, so I bought we took it off the hose and we could not, put it back on, it would leak. So I bought the kit from Moss, the cooler and the hoses, the braided hoses. Well, one of the hoses, basically one of the hoses, the angle of the bend, the 90-degree bend was at the wrong direction. So it would not fit on one end of the cooler, and the other end of the cooler, the hose was too short. So I ended up using one braided hose and one rubber hose. So the purists wouldn't like it, but that's what I had to do. The other oil leak story I had, which was much scarier, because the oil cooler, that was a very mild, very minimal leak. Anyway, this is about 6 or 7 years ago in December. I started the car and I thought it didn't sound quite right. It sounded like a gurgling noise. So I looked under the car, and one of the oil galley plugs was out, and oil was coming out while the engine was running. So immediately I obviously turned it off. And so it was a plug on the driver's side, kind of toward the firewall, that plug.
Okay.
So a machine shop, I got I guess a plug made in a machine shop, and I had to have a car towed, and they used JB Weld to put it in, and it's been fine ever since. But that was pretty scary when you see, driving an MG, owning MG should be a multi-sensory experience. You have to listen, you have to smell, you have to feel, you have to hear. You can't be oblivious. And fortunately, I heard kind of a funny sound after I started the engine up, and that was it's not a nice sight to see, oil coming out of the bottom of the engine.
I think there are as many as 13, maybe, of those tapered brass plugs. There isn't much of a taper to them, but they're all driven into the block. You can buy new ones, but oh my gosh, don't ever do that. If you have the option, you got the engine apart, you're doing something or other, tap the hole, tap it. I don't know what the British guys use, but here we use 1/8 and 1/4 NPT, National Pipe Thread, and you can get Allen driven screws at the hardware store to put those in, and then it's tapped, it's clean. You get the oil. It's when you're rebuilding an engine, you want to get all the oil galleys open anyway, so you can put a brush down inside them and spin it on the end of it like a bottle brush, a little tiny one, for cleaning the bore of a rifle. And matter of fact, those work very well. And you want to scratch it.
On the garage floor, I did find the little plug. It was only about a 1/4 inch long, but and the other thing I do for detect all leaks, when I pull into the garage, I head into the garage. So when you back the car out, you can see on the garage floor if anything is leaked, whether it's coolant or oil or whatever. And I even do that if I pull in a parking space in a shopping center
Sure.
garage. I don't head out. I back out. I don't want to call it paranoia, but I mean, you just, if you back out, you can see if it leaks. So that's what I do. I don't head in my garage for a quick getaway like the fire department.
Got it. Mart, I was talking to Marty this afternoon. We were talking about the Zoom tonight and everything. And she said, just tell everybody to get a great big wide piece of craft paper and put it on your garage floor, and then instantly you'll know, at least where it's dripping from. Although drips in off the undercarriage is like trying to find a leak in a flat roof in a classroom. The leak might be 60 feet away from away from where it's dripping in. But anyway, that's another way. So
John, I have another interesting story. The one of those oil plugs right next to the oil pressure relief valve on my friend's car. Good thing I was behind him. I see a line of oil, and I pull over, and we didn't have anything to put. I had a bolt, but it was too long. It was blocking the oil pressure relief valve. So anyway, we found a smaller, shorter one, but it wouldn't stay in. And his wife went over and picked up a rock and wedged it in between the the side of the fender well, and that stayed in there until he got home. He says, "Should I write a tech tip?" I said, "I don't think so."
how
But
do you, how do you
whatever
use a
worked.
rock? How do you use an old bolt and a rock to stop an oil leak?
Yeah,
But
that's what we
hey,
did.
necessity is the mother of invention. So very cool. Do we have any more comments or questions about oil leaks?
John,
I had
could
a
you
issue,
talk
Curtis.
about,
I'm listening to Tim here.
okay, John, could you talk about leaks from sump plugs? And because they seem to leak from time to time, and also the importance of the breather system working properly, not being blocked.
Okay, so there's a copper washer underneath all the drain plugs on all the sumps, except the midget 1500. That's a taper thread, like the differential or the bottom of the gearbox. But all the rest of our cars have got a copper washer, and after that's been used a couple of times and tightened, it hardens. It changes diameter. It changes the thickness. It's no longer good. So when you're putting your drain plug back into your sump, make sure you've got a washer, and it doesn't have to be copper. It doesn't. You don't have to put 60 pounds of torque on that. But the tighter it is, the better it is, and the nicer the copper washer, the better it is. So anyway, and what Tim's talking about is the ventilation system in the car, and that's what I was talking about a little bit with that blown piston that I had in the picture in the communication. But sometimes other stuff goes wrong. If you've got a Smith's PCV valve, that big mushroom shaped job that's on the intake manifold 64 through 68 on the American spec cars, those can go bad. And if you end up with pressure inside the cylinder block, again, it will leak from every oil seal and every gasket. So there's some way of getting ventilation in and out, getting air in and out, at least out of the engine. So if you're not sure if it's open, you can, take the oil filler cap off. It's a pretty good size hole to wrap your lips around and blow, or the other way around, whatever tube comes off the side of the engine, you can put that in your mouth and blow and make sure that the front tappet inspection cover is clean, or the oil separator on the front of the A series engine on the midget. I had a guy one time. He had that's smaller. It's like a Red Bull, about the size of a Red Bull can. That it's all packed with a very coarse steel wool on the midget, not unlike the MGB, and it's just to slow the fumes down, the vapors down, and something for the oil to grab a hold of, so it can fall back into the engine rather than being carried out and burned up in the intake system. But I had a guy come around. He goes, "Oh, my engine's blowing oil everywhere, yada yada yada." I said, "Well, we can do some. Well, what's going to cost to rebuild the engine?" I gave him a price. He went to my competitor in Grand Rapids, and the competitor sold him the rebuild and all the upgrades. So he's got twice as much into it as I was going to charge him, and it still leaked because that front separator on his A series engine had clogged up. And that can happen on the MGB also, the front tappet inspection cover. So Glenn Lenhard has a video up maybe from his site or on YouTube, I'm not sure, about taking a cutoff wheel and cutting a rectangle in the front tappet inspection cover, opening it up, peeling that old coarse steel wool out of there and replacing it. In this country, we replace it with a product called Chore Boy, Chore. It's just a real coarse steel wool. You want to use real fine steel wool. You don't want to have that dancing around inside the engine to get sucked up into the pump or something. Um,
Quick, John.
yes.
I don't know if you can see the picture, but when my car came to me, the PO, where I've got that little air cleaner on the top of the valve cover, I guess they didn't understand what you just were talking about. So they put a cork in that hole. That probably wasn't the best thing. I didn't know much about motors, but a buddy told me I needed to let the air come in and out. So
Yeah,
that's
you've
worked
got
out
it.
pretty well for me.
The oil draft tube on the X-Pag and the early B engines, I mean, it's as big around as your thumb. So as long as air can get out of there, then you're all right. We have seen X-Pag engines with those really fancy aluminum side covers. Oh, they look so cool. They're finned, just look slick as the dickens, but they don't ventilate, they don't breathe. And so the inside of the engine will pressurize. Had a guy, his car was in the shop, in my shop, after two rebuilds, one rebuild in Texas and one in Alaska. And he finally brought it to my shop. We had to rebuild it because the job in Alaska was so poor. And I couldn't get the thing to stop smoking, which can also be a problem with the new pistons, another issue. But I talked to the owner and he goes, "Well, that's a problem I had in the first place when I had it rebuilt in Texas." So I took that side cover off and it wouldn't breathe. So the whole inside of the engine was pressurizing. When that happens, the oil control rings can't pull the oil off the walls into the sump. It stays there, and then the resulting action of the compression rings scrapes the oil back up and it burns it, and it's always smoking. So that was the problem there. Not leaking, but smoking. So
John,
yes.
I have a 70 midget, and that front panel, the previous owner had decided that when he took all the emission stuff off to just plug that. So the bottom
Yes.
of the engine made pressure, and you wouldn't believe the amount of oil it pushed on my garage floor.
Yep.
I
Yep.
looked online and I put a little line between that and the carburetors, and the oil leak went down to drops.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. You can't pressurize. You can't allow the inside of the engine to pressurize because you got
Yeah,
the spool thread. You got all that stuff. So yeah,
it
very
was
true.
bad. It was a lot of oil.
I believe you. I believe you.
John,
Yes, sir.
John,
Bruce.
I've got this is an appropriate show for me because I had like an eye leak today with a vein, so everything's leaking. But my main problem here is I have a master cylinder on a TC, and the three-way fitting down there leaks. Is there a product I can put on that, or
No, no.
the
That's
little niblets in the inside are all like pitted. They don't make a solid fitting when I
well.
screw them in.
You've either got to get the gland nut tighter. use a line wrench on it. Of course, it's a BSF size.
Yeah.
But it's just get it tighter. Just get them tighter. There's the brake line itself, a single flare like on your stove is like this,
Right.
right? And then a bubble flare is like this, and a double flare is like that. So a bubble or double doesn't make any difference. But
Right.
you bought the brake lines and put new brake
Yeah, the
lines.
new brake lines going to the three-way fitting to the master.
They're not tight enough. That's all.
Okay. I
Tighten them
didn't
up.
want to over tighten them.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
They aren't tight enough. So
Okay, thank you.
yes, sir.
John, another oil leak problem. I had my oil cooler and the neck, it cracked twice. It happened. Well, we've driven down riverbeds and bumpy dirt roads and so forth. And so I decided I'm not going to let that happen again. I took a old rubber floor mat, one of the thick ones,
Yeah.
and I cut it out in the shape of the cooler and tightened down the bolts, and I have not had that problem since.
So the cooler is attached to the front pan with
Yeah.
that between it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And use it as a gasket, and it's worked good.
Some anti-vibration device.
Yeah. So, and I suppose I should stop driving down riverbeds and dirt roads,
Well,
but it's fun.
There have been, of course, there have been product failures. The oil pressure line that goes from the block to an intermediate fitting or something or other, those for all the cars, those have been known to blow apart or crack during fitting. And then this is some time ago. I haven't heard of this lately. Although you never know, you buy the brand new line from somebody, and he's had it on the shelf for 7 years, and it's one of the bad ones. And then the other even more horrible one is the oil cooler line. Some of those weren't crimped correctly, and those blew off. And at speed, I would imagine you'd empty your sump in about 10 seconds. I mean, it's aneurysm, isn't that what your aorta perforates? I mean, that's it. I mean, you're done right there. It's catastrophic.
It's called an aortic dissection.
Okay. Yeah, the dissection, I got, yeah, all right. Okay. All right. Anyway, those kinds of things always can happen. And just as a last note, if you are taking your oil lines off your oil cooler, remember that the oil line is steel and the oil cooler is aluminum. And the way to separate dissimilar metals is by quenching. You separate similar metals by heating them like you're taking a stud out of a exhaust manifold or something. Just get it red hot, and it's all the same metal. But in the case of the oil cooler, what I do is take a propane torch and heat the nut on top of the oil cooler for a minute, 2 minutes. It's hot. Now there's still oil inside there, so it sort of can't get too hot, but it gets really hot. And then you take a couple handfuls of rags that you've just pulled out of a 5-gallon pail, and they're dripping wet. And you put them around there and put the wrench on it, and it comes off like it was just put on yesterday, too loose. It's unbelievable. Napa, again, has quenching fluid, but all it is a CO2 can. And so you spray the CO2 on the fitting, and that quenches it. You don't have to heat it first because I don't know how cold dry ice is. Rich probably knows, but that's a way to do it too. But I always use the propane torch in the water trick. And I just did that 3 weeks ago on an MGC. Oil cooler's never been off the car, and the nuts came loose. You can almost unscrew them by hand. So just as a comment, I'm going to go over here to the chat section, unless anyone's got anything more to say about leaks. Okay, here we go. Doug Miller from Ohio. John, in 2008, I invested in your complete lubrication and um, repaired and or replaced certain parts. I'm thinking of doing that again. What does this? Uh, how do I get this done since I'm retired? You can take the list, take it to somebody. Doug, you're in Northwest Ohio, is that correct? Greater Toledo area?
Holland, Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Tony knows somebody around. I don't know. But you can get the list off my. Wait, you bought my yellow book off eBay, so
Yeah.
you got it in there. Although there are lots of little upgrades on it now. You can get it off the website. But take it to somebody. But when we were doing it, it was 6 hours. Six
I know.
times. Or do it yourself because who's going to be more careful than you are? And if you run into something, it says, blow out the air vent bulb. It's like, what is he talking about? Call me, I'll tell you what it is. Bob Gibbs corresponded with me yesterday, and as a result, or maybe today, as a result of that email that I sent out, and he said he doesn't get leaks on the floor of the garage. He gets leaks on his feet. Where's all that water coming from? And I said, well, that's coming from inside the air vent. So you
Right.
take your blowgun and go up underneath there and blow all the detritus out of there. And then it'll vent and all that stuff will drip out. But I just do it yourself. You can
Yeah.
do that.
I've thought of that, but sometimes there's a theory that you're too close to the problem that you don't see the solution.
Yeah. Yep.
And when a
Yep.
stranger's looking at the car and going through all the detail, it's better. But I I'll check it out, and I continue to try to cover that. It's a great investment. I thought it was a good deal back in 2008.
It was our most popular service. And when you paid for it, it must have been 600-700 bucks. When I closed in 2016, it was up to maybe 800 bucks. Between the labor and the oils and the filters and there's always little stuff you just fix it as you went along. You wouldn't do all the rear brakes even if you found them bad because that was 500 bucks by itself. But yeah, yeah. Check with Tony, see who, you guys, you got to have somebody around. Steve Shivington is at some distance and
Yeah, Tony's too old. I was with him yesterday. I don't hang with him anymore. He's too old.
I don't know. Are they going to let him keep driving his cars or not? So
He's trying to buy a new one, but Janet keeps saying no.
okay.
No,
Oh, there he is. There he is.
watching Doug Miller. I know stories about you too.
Okay, so here we got Andrew Penny that says awesome visits. Thank you, Andrew. We got Justin Schroeder says like the CB. Who remembers those? I don't know what this is in reference to, but CB radios. Yeah, that's all I remember was that
I can clarify.
Gerald Ford's Gerald Ford's wife, Betty Ford, her call sign on her CB was First Mama. That's when what was the song that was popular? Convoy. Convoy. And then there was a takeoff on that.
JB McCall or something like that.
There was a takeoff on Convoy called Convoy GB that made the circuit in England. And of course, it was just a spoof on ours. I'm off the subject.
Hey, John, this is Justin.
Yes.
I'll clarify, and then if I may, I'll ask a question. But I was referencing when you were opening with your housekeeping rules and whatnot, where you push the spacebar button to unmute yourself.
Oh, all right.
That's what I mean. Like the CB, you hit the button and then you got to let go.
Got it. I understand. I never had a CB. I missed that whole thing. So,
Could I ask a question regarding
absolutely.
tank ventilation? I've been working with mine, and I wanted to ask you, have you discovered a modern PCV valve that can be used as a replacement within the system?
For what year?
Well, mine's a 77.
So you don't want a PCV valve? There is no PCV valve.
Yeah, I know how the previous system was designed.
What kind of carburetor do you have on there now?
A Weber.
So my suggestion on Webers is, sounds crude, cut a hole in the Weber. Cut a hole as big around as your little finger. Buy a barbed fitting at the hardware store that's got a nut on it or two nuts. Put that through that hole in the air cleaner. Tighten up the nuts against each other. You don't want the nut on the inside to come loose and dance down the throat. It's not going to get in the engine, but it'll jam the throttle open. And then hook your line from the front tappet inspection cover to that. And just that bit of inhaling that the engine's doing will put a vacuum on the inside of the engine. The air going into the engine comes from that pipe that comes up from the back side of the valve cover. And even though it looks like it's a half inch in diameter, it's a bullet on the end there, and the hole in there is only 5/64. It's tiny. I mean, it's less than an eighth of an inch. So that's the air that gets drawn into it. But that air cleaner is a nice way to do it. The Weber's got a fitting on the bottom of it, a little 90-degree fitting, and you can hook your hose into that. But then when you put the air cleaner on, it covers up like half the hole. So
I noticed that, yeah.
I'm never sure how much air is getting drawn out of the engine, and you want fresh air to cycle through that engine. So
Yes, indeed.
John, I take issue with the statement that it won't suck through and into the engine. Yes, it will.
That's pretty nasty. That's pretty nasty there.
That makes a hell of a noise, let me tell you. And it leaves imprints on the top of the piston and the top of the cylinder head. But anyway, yes, the stuff. Well, now this was with SUs. I've never looked at a Weber. Don't know wouldn't know a Weber if it walked in the door. But with an SU, it's a straight pipe right into the motor.
Yep. Anyway, so that was my comment to Justin, is that if you're putting that on, you make sure that nut on the inside of the air cleaner doesn't come loose.
Real tight.
Yeah, real tight. Or just bugger a hole through the air cleaner and just put the hose right through the hole. Just,
There are some metal valve stems for tire work, and
Okay.
they've got the flange on the inside
But
and
those-
the nut on the outside, and that's kind of a pretty good way to hook it up.
That's a pretty small inside diameter, though, isn't it? Like you're down a quarter of an inch or something?
Yeah, close
Yeah,
to it, but
I'm
you're
looking.
not talking about big draft, right? Unless you got a big hole at the other end.
Yep. So the draft that goes into the original carburetor is about a 5/16 in diameter. But anyway, thank you very much. You're right. Those have got those may be a helpful thing there. So. All right, Ryan Massfeller, congrats on the 100th plus episodes. Question for you. My 80 MGB has an annoying oil leak that's coating the entire engine bay and wheel arches with a fine oil mist. I believe it's coming from the front timing cover. If that's the culprit, how difficult of a job is it to replace the seal behind the timing cover? It's not. It's pretty straightforward.
Hey, John, I can show you. I've got Rhonda right here, but yeah, it's you can see clear as day. It's coating everything. I mean, nothing will ever rust on Rhonda.
Yeah,
That's a plus. But yeah, it's getting everywhere. So I would suspect that maybe we're getting compression. I've done
No, you got here. You got a PCV valve hooked up in that hose that goes from the front tappet inspection cover.
Right. I wanted to show you how I did it on mine, at least. I put Basil Adams's full piece billet plate cover on, put my own pipe on here. This is a flame trap from a Rover.
Oh, it's a flame trap. Flame trap. Okay.
Yeah, flame
and
trap.
where does that go?
It
Well,
goes into an oil catch can here.
okay.
It draws from, this is a thing I got from McMaster Car. It's the right size diameter from the original like 5/32 hose. So it restricts the amount of air it can draw.
Well,
Uh,
maybe it's restricting it too much and the inside of the engine is pressurizing, and that's why it's blowing out of the front seal.
well, I would tell you when I had a larger diameter hose on there, it was basically drinking oil out of the side of the motor.
Okay.
So
All right.
yeah,
So that's going to
I've
be
done a lot
going.
of trial and error on getting that
Okay.
right.
So take the hose, that's in the flame
Right.
trap right now, and just get a 3 foot piece of hose and hook it to the top of the flame trap, drape it over the top of the engine down by the starter motor, and just let it sit there. And then go out
Okay.
and drive it. Have you got the same problem? Is it still misting? Clean it all and just see, because that takes all the pressure off the inside of the engine. All the pressure will be gone. And I mean, I'm before you take the front cover off. Now, if you want to take the front cover off, it's a straightforward enough job. But when you do that, you're going to look in there and you go, oh my gosh, the chain tensioner's all chewed up. So you got to buy that. Oh my gosh,
Right.
the chain. Oh, look how floppy the chain is. So better take the gears. So my late wife said when you open the engine, it develops an appetite. So you don't go any deeper than the chain. You get the gasket, the chain, the tensioner, and
Right.
so
Well, I appreciate it, John. Thank you very much.
all right. You're very
John, it's Tim.
welcome.
John, it's Tim in England. That engine had the wrong oil filler cap on it. So there's two. One's vented and one's not vented. And I think that should have had a vented filler
Yeah,
cap.
I appreciate that. I went through that as well. This is the non-vented because it's
Be,
the latest model. This is an
be,
80P. So
because if Ryan runs his finger towards the back of the engine, that guy is supposed to go. What's all that? Oh, that's a hose clamp. That goes over to the charcoal canisters. So
right
that's where the fresh air enters the engine.
up through. And if anybody needs a new, I've manufactured a new hose for that PCV valve. I've written all this up on the Experience website.
Okay.
If somebody's looking for that, I went through and found a Gates hose that actually fits that through a lot of trial and error. I don't know where I found all this free time, but anyways. But yeah, I appreciate you looking out for that. That was definitely something I had done wrong initially. It's a lot of trial and error here.
I bet. I bet. Well, anyway, just run that hose across the top of it and just go out and try and just you always do the cheapest, easiest, simplest stuff first and you diagnose it first. It may be the front seal.
Well,
But
I would,
most
except I've done something else foolish, and now the radiators developed a bow in it from I don't know what I was thinking, and I didn't put
you
the
missed.
coolant in. I didn't put the coolant in here. I just decided to top up the
Oh yeah.
overflow tank, and yeah, so rookie mistake, John. Live and learn. It's only what $500 for a new one from Wizard Cooling. So it's a
Oh
good
my
thing
God.
it's a good thing I work for Google. I can afford to make all these mistakes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Thanks, Ryan. All right. Next one up, we got Klaus is from Germany. Very nice. Thank you. And Mark B is from San Jose, California. Um, and Tom, to everybody, says, I rebuilt my TD brake system using MPSS. Tom, are you on?
Yeah, hi, John. It's Tom
What's,
Capehart.
yeah. Thank you for your donations. What,
And I rebuilt the brakes over the winter in the fall with Moss new cylinders, and I replaced every brake component and used .5, which I'm really, I guess, regretting because this spring, without ever having been on the road, it's still on jack stands. Every cylinder is leaking, and it's dripping on the garage floor and pooling. So I guess the hotter weather, we've had some mid 80s, hotter weather is expanding the fluid and it's going through the seals.
it goes through the seals anyway. And past the original, I don't know if, it seems to me the new cylinders have got O-rings in them. And
Uh-huh.
the original cylinders had Lockheed cups in them. You can go to Napa and buy the Lockheed cups, but I don't think you can retrofit those unless you got your old cylinders. Um,
What I'd like to do is go back to dot four, and I have a lot of old cylinders laying around. I could have them rebuilt, and and
you can rebuild them yourself. You just got to pop them apart, clean them, and you can go to Napa and get a seven. That's a 7/8 bore. They have 7/8 cups. You don't need
yeah,
you don't need anything more than that. Just that. You use Sil Glide when you put them together, and that those original ones may you may be more successful with the silicone fluid, or at this point you might say, nah, I'm just going to go with the real stuff. So,
yeah. And in that case, could I just blow out the new brake lines
oh,
with
you don't have to. You just because you're going to put so much new fluid in there, you're just going to pump that silicone fluid out. By the time you've done 10 pumps in each
yeah?
cylinder or something or other, any vestiges of that original stuff is going to be out.
And then what about the master cylinder? I have to rebuild that too, right? If I switch fluids.
Well, if it's rebuildable, that's the yank on some of the new pieces. Sometimes is that Moss doesn't sell the replacement pieces for them, and
Okay.
so that's why you end up by using the original ones.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Rich Caldwell, we've already talked about the way that his MGA brake switch failed. Tom, classic gold cylinders and dot.
That's me
Oh,
again.
okay. All right.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. All right. Uh, um, Simon Boothroyd. I used to have an MG Metro. This is tonight's understatement. He says it was quite rapid. In fact, the MG Metro, which were made the Metro, the Maestro, and the Montego. The Metro, which is a front wheel drive, has the fastest acceleration of any MG that was built. I don't know about the new ones. Okay, not talking Chinese, talking about British. Has the fastest acceleration of any of the MGs. The MG Metro, the MGC is the fastest on the road. Martin to everybody, my sending unit was leaking badly from where the wire penetrates through it. Yeah, it's a new piece and it is not as durable as the old one. Martin, are you still on? Martin's not on. So if you got an original sending unit, MGA or MGB, fix it. Fix it. Don't put a new one in. The original ones have got a coil in them that's larger in diameter than a pencil, and wrapped around the coil is, I don't know, 300 turns of resistor wire. You take apart a new one, and there's 48, I'm making this number up, 48 turns of resistor wire. Well, the earlier ones, of course, are better, but they fail. You just have to find the wire where it's broken and repair it. So it's not easy, but I've done it. Here's Ed to everybody. He converted his 74 MGB, we assume, to .5 last year and has no issues. And Chad Bergeson says, choose your poison. John, brake sensors fail with .32. John says he goes through one per year. Is that your experience, Judd? Do you have
No, I had a brake the pressure sensor switch failed when I first got the car. I ended up getting one, I believe, from one of our favorite suppliers, and it seemed to last about 6 months. And then I read online that Napa had the same thing, just as a generic part. And I put that in about 2014, And probably as we speak, it's corroding and falling on the garage floor, but up to now, it's been working perfectly.
Still working. Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's a real common switch. Not with the screws, but with spades on it. The thread on the bottom of that switch is 1/8 British Standard pipe, and it was just used in lots and lots and lots of applications. So
What surprised me, I expected to dump brake fluid all over myself changing it, and not a drop comes out.
no, no, you just got to be fast. You don't want to wait too long, but yeah, you don't want to get introduce any air in there. And what we used to do in the shop is we'd just as we're unscrewing and pulling it off, we'd have the second person sitting inside pushing the brake pedal at about, I mean, maybe pushing the full stroke in 20 seconds. I mean, just a real slow push. And by the time you got the old one out and the new one in, it had purged any air that might have got in there. So, but it doesn't appear as though any air gets in there anyway.
John?
David?
Yeah, it's Robert Davidson.
Yeah.
I just looked through your list on YouTube, that rebuild that you did on the sending unit. If that guy's interested in looking, it's number 368.
Okay. It's an MGA. That's rebuilding the MGA, or I don't know if it's an A or a B one, but 368. Okay, thank you. Robert, thank you very much. Discount the next time you
Yes,
come
sir.
by. See you tomorrow night. You going to the club meeting?
Yes.
Great. David writes in and says, I have a strong gasoline smell after driving the car and parking in the garage. I see no signs of a leak. I did drill a hole in the gas tank cap to relieve gas tank cavitation issues that caused the car to lose power and stall. What could the issue, what could be the issue with the gas smell? So what I need to know is from David, what year you're talking about, if you're still on.
Yeah, it's a 1980
Okay.
MGB. And, I think there's something going on with that gas
Condensing
venting system in the trunk.
gas,
These are
yes.
but I don't know how to check to see if it's clogged or not. I mean,
Okay.
I guess blowing air pressure through there or something.
So that canister is located, it's held up in there by a screw and by one of the bolts that holds on the chrome strip. And it's positioned in such a way that the bottom fitting goes down to the gas tank. That hose goes bad all the time, so you want to get Gates green hose. Gates makes a bunch of different hoses, but they're on the green bandwagon. But the green hose is far superior to the old-fashioned fuel line, 1/4 inch or 5/16. I can't, probably 5/16. Anyway, replace that piece. And then there's a piece at the top of that goes to a line which goes all the way up to your charcoal canister. Take that line off, push your lips around that and blow, and you should be able to blow air into the charcoal canister. Well, how would you know if you're getting air in there? It's a two-person process. I'm not sure I'd use your compressed air yet, because you don't want to blow anything up, but sometimes that steel line that goes under the car, all the way along the car, and then up next to the charcoal canister, sometimes that gets fluid in it, rusts, and gets jammed up. So what we've done in the past, if that's the case, and if you want to make it correct, you cut the line underneath the car, take an old speedo cable, splay the end like a rotor-rooter, and get your drill. And it's again almost two-person job. And as this thing's spinning, you move it into the line and back out, into the rear line and back out. And then having got it all clean, then you can use a piece of hose to join those two that you separated with a with a pipe cutter. So you shouldn't have to drill a hole in the filler cap. absolutely. That's supposed to vent from the charcoal canister. So the most often the reason you get a gasoline smell is from the tank, from that ventilation system. But it might be coming from there might be a leak up in front. There's a O-ring on the bottom of the carburetor. What year is that?
It's a 1980, but it has a Weber on it.
Oh, okay.
And I was wondering if, the smell could be coming from the carburetor.
Probably not. I don't think the Webers do that.
Okay.
I don't think they leak like that. The Strombergs do, the SUs do, but I don't think those do. So
John, would a 72B have that same ventilation system?
yes, 1970 through 1980. There's a condensing canister on the upper side of the right rear fender, and then there's a line that goes all the way underneath. Remember, prior to that, there was a hole in the gas cap because whatever air you had to get in got in, and whatever pressure was in there got out. But the government doesn't want unburned hydrocarbons in the atmosphere, raw gasoline, so it was all trapped through the charcoal canister.
So
Now,
that
one thing,
might
John, on that little canister that's in the trunk of the car, do they ever malfunction, get clogged up, or?
All you got to do is put a line on one end and put your thumb on the other and
Okay.
draw a vacuum with your mouth or pressure. You'll be able to tell instantly, but I've never seen one fail. That's just a sealed can.
Okay. One
Hey,
other
John.
thing, I've got a little bit later chat that talks about oil leaks. And my issue is I have had numerous boots on the rack and pinion fail.
Yep.
And I was wondering if there is any recommendation for good boots that can last longer than a year.
Yes. For a while they were from Napa and they fit a Ford and they were dynamite. And then Napa dropped them out of their catalog because the sales weren't good enough for whatever Ford it was. There are some, but I don't have any information on that right now, unless somebody has that information available to them quickly or wants to put it over in the chat section. We're not the only people that use rack and pinion. There are other boots available. The ones we bought, the Ford ones, were like $60 a pair, but who cares? No, they're still on the car, and the original ones lasted forever. But one of our major suppliers has had years worth of trouble getting good rubber, and I don't understand why. I just don't understand why there's a problem. So.
Yeah, so if anybody online here knows of good replacement boots, just put it in the chat. I'd appreciate it. I'm
Okay.
so fed up with this.
Yes, I understand.
I get one of the questions might be what kind of failure it is. I mean, if it cracks at the bellows, that's one thing. If it just gets saggy and slimy, that's another.
It should last for 10, 20 years. Easy.
Yeah, it gets a little rip in the rubber, from extending and contracting.
Yeah,
and they've been on the car a year and they're now leaking again.
It's the wrong material.
Right.
Somehow. Yeah.
Hey, John, this is Justin.
Yes.
A couple of things. We'll back up a touch. I don't know if you can see it. Well, let's see if we can get it back to where my face is. But I use this little pump. Oh, you can't really see it. Anyway,
I see it. Yep, I got it.
See it. And when you get like tire pumps, you get the little plastic thing that screws in there for blowing up beach balls.
Yeah.
I like using that for pressurizing vacuum lines and fuel lines and things to find. And it's low pressure, so you can't blow anything up. And it's not a generator running, so you can actually hear it hissing on the other end. And the person that was talking about that fuel smell and all of that system with the tank venting and all of that,
Sure.
I went through that with my car. I ended up replacing all of the line because I used about 8 feet of wire trying to crush through the crunch. And I kept breaking wire, and I was like, forget it. I'm just going to replace it all, which I did. Works fine and beautiful now, as well as rebuilding the charcoal canister. So that was the first thing I wanted to say. And then back to the bellows. I did mine last year, I think, and I got mine from MGOC Spares UK. And I really like the rubber. And they also didn't give me the funny clamps and all that. They gave me worm gear driven clamps, but they were the really nice ones.
Okay.
So it wasn't like zip ties and nonsense like that. It was like really good rubber for the bellows and the really good clamps. And I've had mine on, and I drive a lot of miles in mine, so they've been fine. So for what it's worth.
MG Owners Club. There's Moss Europe, because Moss Europe doesn't sell necessarily the same stuff as Moss USA. There's Rimmer Brothers, which is now corporately connected to Moss, but they're still a separate firm. There's the place in Germany. So there's a bunch of places around that sell them, but I know there's got to be some place at Napa. On the other hand, you can order something from England tonight, and it'll be in your mailbox in 4 days. It's just uncanny. So, yep.
Okay, very good.
All right. We're going to leave that, come down to allegedly you can test for silicone brake fluid by trying to mix it with some water. Yes, Martin, that's what Rich said. Absolutely. And it's the silicone fluid will not mix with the water. It sits separately from there. And Ryan Massfeller's got a note on here about paint pens that he uses. He buys them on Amazon. The next one up here is Richard Stokes. I used some fluorescent dye yesterday to try to identify an oil leak in my 60 MGA. I poured it into the valve cover oil cap. It hasn't, just a minute. It hasn't worked its way through the system yet, but fortunately, oil has a greenish hue under a black light. I found a fairly rapid leak on the modern oil filter mount. It's a spin-on oil filter that he's got, accessible from only underneath the car. I tightened this up and hopefully that takes care of it. So that's interesting. He says, I'm curious though, how long will it take for the dye to work its way through the system? If you drive the car for 10 miles, it's everywhere. That's the thing. You don't wait for it to ooze or to combine. You actually go out and drive it. So Gerald, everybody, alternator pull. Oh, we already talked about this. Cut the oil. Oh my gosh, that cut the oil line. That's so sad. And here, black light flashlights are super cheap on Amazon, $8. Rich from Houston said 10, but here we're already getting it lower now. Richard Stokes is $8. And Ruth Arnold from the greater DC area says, cardboard is my friend. Never throw away a big box. There we go. That's the bottom line after everything else. Yep. Chad Bergeson, I've had good luck with this pulling oil stains out of concrete. And he's got a link on there for some kind of product. Here we go. Surrey, BC, British Columbia, beware of gas leaks from the frost plug on the Zenith Stromberg on the bottom. So there are two brass plugs, one on the choke and one on the carburetor itself. And the O-ring at the bottom of the carburetor, not 1980, maybe not even 79, but the ones up to then, because later on they cast the whole float bowl bottom is one piece. Prior to that, it was common with like a TR250 or something, and it uses an O-ring, and all those O-rings fail under modern gasoline. You have to replace it with a Viton O-ring. Let's see. Oh, and in here, Ryan Massfuller's he's got some concentrated stuff. He says, but be careful, be careful if used under full strength, you're going to ruin your concrete. Um, um, Ryan also has got a link to an oil change plug that I've seen those before, that you can open those up without loosening them. It's pretty nice. Simon Boothroyd, I was just looking at my nice shiny stainless oil cooler hose right next to the positive coil LT lead connection today. Time to move it. Absolutely. You can't cover it, it'll chafe. Yep, you have to move it. For oil stain on concrete floor, soak up the excess oil and then sprinkle some mortar mix on top of the stain. Let it absorb and then sweep it up. Okay, mortar mix. Okay, we got lots of ideas. Oh, here we go. Duct tape. Here we go. I don't, I don't know. I don't know how duct tape. Yeah, okay, funny. Best oil for a rebuilt MGB engine. So the best oil for a rebuilt MGB engine is something high in zinc. I like Valvoline VR1 Victor Romeo 1 2050. It's got 1,200 parts per million of zinc. We used no, not Brad Penn oil when had my shop. You can't buy that off the shelf. You had to buy it in cases from someone who's a distributor. Castrol has their classic oil back, which has got over 1,200 parts per million of ZDDP, which you need to protect the cam. So, anyway, I use Valvoline VR1 because everybody has it for sale, and it's got high zinc. Rorsch, yeah, the Rorschach test. Yeah, with it. Yeah, take that to your psychiatrist or take a picture of it. What do you think this is? It's my MGB. Do you know the size of the brake bleeder valves on my 74B? I'm thinking of trying out Russell's speed bleeders, and they don't show an application for MGs. Oh, what's the thread? My guess is that there's two threads. One's the old valves, one of the new valves. I don't know that thread. I pride myself on knowing all the threads. It's larger than 1032. It's not quarter inch. I don't know. Anybody out there know what
Hey, John,
Yeah.
it's Ryan here. I was going to do this on Rhonda. I've replaced almost every bleeder on my car with these Russell speed. They're
Yeah.
ungodly expensive. I mean, $25 a corner. But I'm pretty sure it's the 639 630. They're 10 mil by 1. But I haven't done it yet on the MG, but I've changed. I've changed to Willwood fronts, so your mileage may vary.
Yeah.
But I absolutely this makes it so you can bleed them, but it's a one-man job. As much as I love my wife pumping the brake for me, it's
It's easier to
yeah,
spend $100.
yeah, yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right.
John,
yes.
this is Joe Vince.
I wrote her down
changed
there,
them
the
on my
size.
72B. I don't remember the number right now, but I know if you look on the MG Experience and do a search, it'll come up with some stuff. It'll get the numbers for. And they
All
don't
right.
cost the ones I bought didn't cost that much either, and they're great.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very kindly. Oh, yeah, here we go. David, another MGB oil leak source. The steering rack and pinion boots and the shock absorbers. I forgot all about those. Thank you. So anyway, we're talking about the boots here, and it would appear as though some from the MG Owners Club are good, but boy, by the time our next Zoom comes up, which will be in 14 days, which puts us up to about the 26th? Is that right? Is that our next Zoom? I'm going to have an answer. Yep.
26th.
26th. I'm going to have an answer for a couple of those. I'll do my very best to do that.
Hey, John.
Yes, Alan.
If you just said the 26th, you don't want to do it then because that's Memorial Day.
Oh, you're right. Maybe it's going to be next week. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Gotta have somebody. Yeah. Too bad we're not still on the Julian calendar. Then it would work. Okay. add to everybody, to the person who was just talking, what's the scale? What scale is your model railroad?
Yeah, the gentleman that had the patch on his eye.
So who's got the model railroad?
The gentleman with the patch on his eye. I
Oh,
could see
okay,
model
yeah,
trains in the background, and that's my wintertime hobby.
okay, yeah. God, Brian, if he were on, he'd come back on. We'll have to wait. You'll have to
I think
wait till
that's Bruce Smith.
Yes, exactly. Yep, Bruce Smith. Yep, well, I got the B part right. Yes. Yep.
So who was
Hey,
it?
man, I had you on mute there. This is Bruce Swift from Greenville. Yeah,
Oh,
that HO in the background there. It's about a 15 by 20-foot layout.
If you did N scale, you could fit 4 times as much in the same space.
Over a garage.
here we go. Yep. Let's see. We got a question here. Leyland drum ground straps for engine and transmission.
Hey,
So,
John.
yes.
So I took the engine and transmission out to change transmissions,
What
and
year? What year?
it's 76,
Okay.
but it's a 69 engine.
So the strap, but because of the year of the car, 76.
Right. Well, let me tell you what I did not have an engine strap, ground strap on the car, but I had a ground strap on the transmission.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
So do I need both, or can I just
No,
stay with the
no,
one?
no, just the one on the gearbox. But just make sure when you put it back on that you look at it and it's going from the frame to the gearbox.
Okay, so on the cross member where it's attached, it went to a P-clip attached to one of the bolts on the transmission. Can I do the same with the overdrive?
Yes.
Okay.
Good
And then
luck.
I got it.
Good
What?
luck trying to get good luck trying to get that in there. But yeah, that's where it goes originally. Absolutely.
Okay, and then a couple other quick things for you. On the overdrive transmission, on the mounts for the transmission, the pads, do
Yes.
they go in the front holes or the back holes? On the cradle that hold the cross member.
I don't know. I've got a YouTube video up about those, and I can't remember. I
Do you
don't
know
know.
where the cross member goes?
Yeah,
Is it the most rear holes in the frame, or is it the further?
I don't know. The
Okay.
only two that fit, the only four that fit. So I don't know.
Okay.
I can't close my eyes and make it work.
Okay, that's fine. And then on somebody recommended before I put the engine back in that I'm changing from a Weber to a set of SUs.
Yeah.
And somebody recommended I pull the first and last stud out of the manifold studs and put bolts in their place. It's easier to do that way. Do you recommend that?
Yeah, it's just fine. They did that from about 75 through 80. Yep. So it's just fine. It works just fine. I use inch and 3/4 fine thread, 5/16, and use when the factory did it, they had a lock washer, and I use two pretty heavy flat washers.
But do you recommend should I go through the trouble of taking the studs out and doing that, or just leave the studs in and use them?
However you want to do it doesn't make any difference. It's usually easier if you use bolts, but it depends. You got a factory exhaust manifold?
I'm waiting on it, but I will have, yeah.
Good. All right. Good. And there are two different manifolds having to do with the thickness of the
The
frame.
7/16.
Yep. 9/16 and 7/16. Yep.
Okay, so will I be able to just leave the studs there then and just use the
Sure.
bolt, the nuts?
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, John.
You're very welcome. Doug, to everybody, on a 69B, if the side engine cover leaks, the engine doesn't need to be pulled, does it? No. Nope. You can actually, if you're really, really agile, you can change that front tappet inspection cover without taking the exhaust manifold off. It's a bitch, but you can do it. You can do it. You can do it.
Bitch.
It is. Yes, it is. Yes, it's a whole lot easier if you get the manifold off, but you don't have to. And when
Hey, John?
replacing the engine side cover gasket, how much oil might be lost? Oh, that negligible, none, zero, just drips.
Hey,
Randy,
John?
yeah,
Yeah, I just changed my side cover gasket today without removing anything, that front one.
okay,
Just got to have a little finesse, a little wiggle room, and things will work out.
okay, just patience. Very nice. Okay. Let's
You
see.
had talked about the side cover tappet inspection plate. I use the silicone thing. I think Lange sells. A little tricky to put it in. It is kind of thick, but I haven't had any leaks on the TD.
Oh, on the TD, yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, on the MGB, you want to use a thin cork, same as you'd use on an MGA. So Jim Roberts, John, I have a 68B and a 75 TR6. And although I have them in the garage, I have no lift and don't feel comfortable using jack stands. You can, that's just that's a mental thing. Jack stands are perfectly good. I used them for years. Um, um, it's tough to check the gearbox and diff levels and do other work. Do you recommend a good lift that won't break the bank? Almost any lift that you get, there's scissors lifts that you can get, that can get the car up, but then, you're wedging your body between the scissors. It's like, yeah, what happens if the hydraulic hose lets loose? I mean, I suppose it's got safety catches on it, but yucky. No, I'd use the jack and the jack stands. I'd go for that. And Judd's got his two-post hoist up. Those are really nice, but the least expensive one I bet you can buy and get it installed is $2,500. I mean, that's just a guess. The last one I saw installed was $7,500, but it was massive and heavy duty and American made and yada yada. But get over your fear of using the jack and the jack stands. Those work just great. I worked on jack stands the whole time I worked in England. I worked with jack stands, and I restored my daughter's 73 MGB GT on jack stands. I now have a hoist again, but oh my gosh.
But you got to study the points in which they bear. Be careful
Yes.
what you put your jacks under.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you. Doc Rosevere, recently tuned 73 MGB, all went well, but when I put the air filters back on, the idle speed went from 900 to 1100. Did I have it too rich to start with? Probably too lean, because the air cleaners are going to restrict the airflow in there, so it's going to increase the vacuum at the jet. That's my guess. But that's why you put the air cleaners on, you go out and you make your last run. And Doc, you got HIFs on that car? You still on? No, don't hear anything. So
He's there. He just doesn't know how to unmute.
There, I got myself unmuted now.
hey, all
Yeah.
right, okay, you got HIFs on that, right?
Right, HIF
Yeah, well,
carburetor.
just the hard thing is to lift the air piston when air cleaners are on. You can't get your fingers underneath there sometimes. So you can unscrew the dampers on the top, angle them to the side so it wedges against the air pistons, and just lift just ever so slightly and judge the change in our RPM. So, but I would think it's too lean. That's kind of weird. I'm trying to think of what else might be going on too. But you can call me tomorrow. We can chat about it. So,
Okay, thanks.
Greg Woodward, 69 MGC GT, has a burning oil smell in the cabin, and I can't figure out what and where. I checked all the grommets and looked for holes in the firewall, but all is plugged. Any idea? Burning oil smell in the cabin. Well, geez, if it's not wiring and it's oil. You can get down inside the wheel well, excuse me, foot well, and have your associate shine a flashlight all around, and it's if you got a something that's open between the firewall, through the firewall into the inside of the cockpit, you can see it pretty well with a flashlight. But I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know what that could be. I mean, it's just you got to keep searching until it.
How about you have to find the source of the oil that's burning?
Well, yeah, and why would that waft? Why would that waft through? So yeah, I'm not. It's a mystery. He
Sometimes
says,
it's the rocker cover leaking onto the exhaust
oh
manifold.
yeah,
That's what
okay,
Gloria just came
yeah,
up with.
yep,
Hey, John,
yes,
with that side cover gasket, that's the exact thing that I had the smell of burning oil in my cockpit. And once I discovered that the front valve side cover gasket was warped and the little rubber gasket holding it in was bad, I replaced all that. It stopped the oil burning smell because it was blowing back onto the exhaust.
okay,
Just a thought.
yep. The MGC's got side covers on the other side from the exhaust, but it's the same idea. So yeah, something's leaking up there. Yep. James to Russia. Good evening. Two questions. 77 MGB. Why does my car wobble side to side above 50 miles an hour? I would ask you if you have disc or wire wheels. So, James, are you still on?
Yep, I'm
Okay.
here.
You got disc or wire
Disc
wheels?
disc wheels.
Well, so how old are the tires?
It's a good question.
Okay, all right. So if you are bold enough to jack the front of the car up, you can just jack up one
Yeah,
corner
no, I've done it a bunch. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
just spin the wheel. Just pull the wheel at you, spin it so it's turning, and you can see if the wheel's doing this. And then the other thing, wobble is the shocks. So when the car's on the ground and you put your body weight on top of the car and start pushing down, 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 you should not be able to get it to bounce. It
Okay.
it it should be real tight. But if the shocks are bad, oh boy, then you've got no control at higher speed.
When I had my 80, like the first thing I had to do was jack up each corner and rock the top of the tire because the kingpin bushings are so worn that it was actually there was enough end float you could feel it. So that's a really quick and dirty one that the tire shop guys taught me. Just jack up a corner, grab the top of the tire, and just yank left and right and
Sure.
see if you feel it
You
any
don't
kind of play whatsoever.
you don't even have to jack the car up. You just grab it and pull it. I mean, there should be, I mean, the car ought to move a little tiny bit, but there should be no hint of free play. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks.
So how much tire pressure is he using?
Well, I don't know.
30 front, 32 rear.
Yep.
That sounds right.
Yep. Okay. Maybe the second one's easier. What's the easiest way to replace the wires from the switch to the overdrive? There is no easy way, but you take the console out, you take that elliptical plate off the top. Now all the wires are exposed, and you cannot get to the third, fourth lockout switch. Got to drop the ass into the gearbox to do that almost always. But that's how you do it from the inside of the car by taking the console out and then taking the plate and all that stuff out of the way. So
Okay, sounds good.
it's exciting. And here's a note from Justin Schroeder about your wheels there. Got here late. Was there information about leaking tappet covers? Yes. Yes, there's lots. So when replacing the front timing cover, the MGB, with a late one with two timing marks, do I need to replace Just a minute. I get it. I got something in the way here.
Crank pulley.
The crank pulley. Well, to be able to use the top timing marks, you certainly have to indicate where top dead center is. So in the beginning, up through 71, the timing marks are at 6 o'clock. Later on, 72, the 18V engines, 72 and newer, the top dead center moves to 11 o'clock. So you can get another pulley. You can get another pulley with the right one. I think the new ones that Moss sells have got both timing marks on
I
them.
think they do.
So they don't have to sell two pulleys. Some of the old pulleys, the outside rotates versus the inside. That's a bizarre failure, but I've seen it. You can bring the car around to top dead center, take the number one spark plug out, put a little screwdriver, a long screwdriver in there, and very carefully rotate the engine back and forth until you get the screwdriver at its top and put a paint mark on the pulley, which is going to be 2 or 3 degrees wide. And of course, you're after 32 degrees timing, and that's critical. But on the other hand, by the time, even if you get the real timing marks,
My question.
and they're highlighted, there's only so much you can only get so close.
Mhm.
So anyway, so do you have to change the crank pulley? You should make sure you know where top dead center is. Yep.
Okay.
Let's see, the same 73 MGB still pops gently through the exhaust on deceleration. My son wants to keep his air pump. So, you can keep the air pump, and if he's not really keen on all this stuff, Doc, you can gut the air pump so it looks like it's working, but it ain't, you know. Um, can I you can test it by removing the belt that drives the air pump. That'll stop the popping. Absolutely, but it's popping because it's too rich. That's usually the case. Or there's a leak in the exhaust, but it's that fresh air that's being added by the air pump into the intake manifold that's causing the unburned gasoline. Do you have the overrun valves? Do you still have the overrun valves in the carburetors, or did you take those out?
I
Doc,
don't know the answer to that.
what's that? We always solder them up, but it's essential. If you solder them up, then when you let the throttle, you're going down the road and the throttle's part way open, all the way open, and then you let off on it, it closes and you don't get enough air through the engine to combust. So it's going to combust down the tailpipe. So it's essential that the overrun valves are working to reduce that popping, because that popping is the redox reaction that you catch as the fresh air is added to the unburned gasoline. In the overrun valves, slow it down. Somehow convince him to take that friggin' air pump off.
I should just put regular overrun valves. I've got soldered up ones in there now.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can
just
change my discs and put in overrun valves.
that will slow that will make it better. Yes.
Okay, it's not real bad. Yeah, okay. Good. I can do that. That's easy.
Okay.
Good.
Randy, John.
But I won't hurt the car, John. I
Yes.
won't hurt the car if I take the belt off and just run it to test with the belt off.
Yes.
And maybe I can convince him that he's better off without it.
It's so much cleaner without that air pump on there. And now the charcoal canisters, all that stuff, yes, leave it in place. It's just it's non-invasive. It robs no energy from the system. It's great, but that air pump is just, there are 200 places where it can fail, and yeah, anyway. So
okay, thanks.
Okay. Randy asks, John, after a nice drive, there tends to be a smell of fuel coming from my 79B engine bay, twin HIF carburetors conversion. Don't see any leakage. it's coming from someplace. So if you got those hooked up to the charcoal canisters, or do those dump right out to the atmosphere? Randy.
They're hooked up to the charcoal canisters.
Geez, there shouldn't be any, there shouldn't be any. I don't know. Don't know. That's there.
It's just a bit of a smell and
Yeah.
tends to be a hard start, but it runs great.
Okay.
I can live with it.
Okay. Good. All right. And you're east of me, so whatever's in the air, I'm not going to breathe. So here, Ryan's got another note here about his charcoal canisters and had a bad situation with those. There is a way to check. There is a way to check the air cleaners or the charcoal canister, the whole system. And that is to plug the line that goes into the air into the bottom of the charcoal canister, whether that's from the bottom of the anti-run-on valve 73 through 80, or just the hose that dumps out of the charcoal canister. But if you put your thumb on the end of that line, it should kill the engine, should kill it. 73 and newer, well, on all of them, 70 through 80, it should kill the engine. That checks the integrity of the charcoal canister. You can always take those things apart, clean them out, put some open cell foam in the bottom of them. The charcoal gets loose and dances down the hoses and holds the anti-run-on valves from closing. It's a simple task to take those canisters out, take them apart, clean them. You don't have to buy new charcoal. Okay, does a double row timing chain and gears alter the valve timing compared to the single chain on a 78B? I have heard that that's true. I've never validated it myself. I don't know. I don't know. Couple degrees, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm just grasping for straws. I've got a Weber carburetor on it. Everything was new. Points distributor from Advanced Distributor, and I just can't get it to run well below 1500 RPM.
So the most common reason would be an inlet leak.
Yeah, I've been all over that thing.
You sprayed carburetor cleaner between the
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And it could be, where's the Weber carburetor from?
It's a Weber.
Where's it from?
Oh gosh.
I mean,
I don't remember.
Okay, because there are, I don't know, 500 different jets in
Oh, yeah.
emulsion tubes and all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
if you take yours apart and with some instruction, just lay everything.
No, I've had it apart many times. Yeah.
And look at the numbers. You can call Pierce Manifold in California and
Yeah.
say,
No. And I did. I've got a dip the size jets and played around with it. But yeah, it's just I was just grasping for straws because it's just never
okay. So
been quite right.
how about where have you got your ignition timing?
Is it 32?
At full mechanical advanced vacuum disconnected.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's just been one of those things. It's like, oh well. So yeah, I haven't driven the car yet. It's been one of those in process. So
yeah. Well, give me a call in a day or two. Just I can't answer the phone all day every day, but if you call and leave the message, I'll talk to you in more detail about what the other issues might be.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know it.
John?
What about the cam?
Yeah.
If you had a racing cam in there, it would probably do that. If you had a racing cam, it would have the RPM to be also high in the beginning, right? Idle?
Yeah, this has a new stock cam in it.
It's a stock cam, okay.
Yeah.
John, I got some information on that because I had one of these Carters that was doing that exact thing. I could not get it to idle below. Really hard to get it even down to 1,000.
Okay.
And I said, I'm going to learn these carburetors. They're not that complicated. Well, what I found was the idle jets, you got two idle jets in that thing. And if you've got too rich of idle jets, you lose your adjustment on your bleed screw. If your bleed screw is coming out past a 3/4 of an inch to or 3/4 of a turn to a turn and a half, you're getting into the secondary circuit on the car, and you're trying to idle it on the secondary circuit, not the idle circuit. How I fixed it, I don't want to go into a long explanation, but how I fixed it is I went up in the jet number, which is actually going down in the size, and it was just too rich. So as I went from 60, 65, 60, 60, 55, 60 in the primary, 55 in the secondary. That was not working. Then I went to a 65, 60, 65 in the primary, 65 or 60 in the secondary. Then I could get it to idle down further. But if you go into the instructions from Weber, it tells you if you're in that secondary circuit, you're not going to get it to idle. So then I went to the 70 on this particular carburetor. I went to the 70 primary, 65 secondary. My idle screw now is only 3/4 of an inch out, or 3/4 of a turn, and I can back the idle down out of that secondary system. And so it's really a touchy thing to do, but it can be done.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've messed with those idle jets, and yeah.
Have we talked about whether his Weber is a downdraft or a side draft?
It's a downdraft.
Entirely different.
John, will you explain to us what full mechanical advance means?
Full mechanical advance means it's going to advance no more. So you rev it higher, 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 and eventually the timing stops moving. And wherever the timing stops moving is full mechanical advance because the weights have moved out all the way. So it's usually up around 3,500 RPM. Sounds like the engine's going to blow up. You go ram, and you just watch it, and it comes up. And if you're using a dial back timing light or however you're doing it, you watch the timing mark move, and that even though the RPMs continue to go up, the timing doesn't. So that's what maximum timing is.
John, one other thing on that carburetor, there's knockoff carburetors on those Webers. They're not really Webers. I don't know where they're from. But if you've got one of those carburetors, throw it away because you're not going to get it to work.
Okay. Maybe we should have one of these discussions about Weber carburetors. So, let's see.
We could do that on the cookout.
Yeah. We'll have a Weber grill. Let's see. Is there a source of MG harnesses wire for short links? Yes, Jim at WD. I already talked to you about that. It seems to me you got a general license or something. Yes, you can buy any length of any Lucas wire from British Wiring in Philadelphia. BritishWiring.com. You can buy, I think it's so silly. I think they sell it in metric. I think they sell it by the meter or something. But anyway, yes, you can get British Wiring. You can get all your bullet connectors, everything from them.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Tom Willett, 74 BGT and 79B, dialed in an hour late. So apologize if you already answered. If the rear main is leaking badly and needs to be replaced, 115,000 miles, still with 65 pounds of oil pressure, does the engine need to come out? Yes, engine has to come out. And there's it's uncanny, but there's a lip seal on the back that rides on the crank, and the lip seal's rubber, and you look at the crank and there's a friggin' groove in it. You got a rubber seal putting a groove in a piece of steel. How does that even work? Because dirt gets lodged in the rubber seal, and the dirt then grinds a groove in the crankshaft. You got to make sure the crankshaft is smooth, mirror smooth, and no divots, nothing you can catch with a fingernail. if it does have that groove, either the crank comes out and goes to the machine shop and gets taken care of, and at 115,000, you've got to change the rods and mains if you haven't done that already. But you can buy a speedy sleeve. It's an SS350 by Chicago Rawhide. And you can put that onto the back of the crankshaft, and that will then give you a smooth surface on which the new engine oil seal can ride.
John, water cut the Grand Canyon and the Speedy Seal goes on like a snap.
Okay, all right. So the question is, how long did it take to create the Grand Canyon? And I'm down to a month or two, right? A lot of water went through that all of a sudden. That little tiny river that goes through it now did not cut that. Anyway, that's another subject. I have an answer for okay, it's John to everybody. He says, I have an answer for the Zenith CD 175 carb you called me about last week for a 1980 MGB. Are you still on, John? Can you tell me what the answer is? I can't remember why I called, but we'll have to wait till next time. Okay, Jim Roberts. I've got 12 more messages. We're sitting at 9:34, so we're just going to get through these. We're getting okay. We've already talked about the jack stands, and just get used to using those jack stands. Absolutely, please. My 69 MGC has a burning oil smell. We already did that one. I have a 69B, the plastic valve covered cap. Are they vented? How can you tell? They're either a solid or they've got a little extra space in them. Beginning in 1970. Let me get this right. Beginning in 1969, no, around 1970, they go sealed. Around there, certainly by 72. They're sealed because the air to replace the air that's being drawn out of the engine comes through the charcoal canister. So there's a point there that they change, and I can't tell you. The Smith's PCV valve used up through 68 uses a ventilated cap. Then 69, it's sealed, so that must still be anyway. Around 19.
John, you always tell somebody to blow on it, and this is the
Yeah.
one. Can't you just blow on the cap?
Well, yeah, you can do that. I'm trying to figure out where they changed, and I'm just talking out loud. So,
John, it's Rob here. I've got the 69 that I was talking about because I had a 72, which is vented through the charcoal filter.
Right.
But my 69, I'm just wondering whether it's got the right cap on the top of it.
So the cap's got a little gap that goes around the outside. It's not sealed.
Okay, yeah,
it's got a hole in the middle.
It's got where the plastic goes in and it goes onto those two bayonet mounts.
Yeah.
And you pop it in and then you turn it. It looks like it goes all the way down and seals tightly.
Then if it's a sealed, the ventilated cap on the underside in the middle has a hole about 1/8 of an inch large.
Okay, I don't believe mine does, so it might be a later cap somebody's put on it.
Correct. And the wrong.
Now, does that just builds up pressure in the engine, doesn't it?
No, because you're venting the pressure. The pressure's coming, you're drawing air out of the front tappet inspection cover and into the front of the rear of the rear carburetor.
Oh, right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It's coming out. It's coming out those covers.
What you're not doing is replacing the air. You're not allowing air to move through there. You want fresh air to move through there. So you want a ventilated cap.
Yeah, okay. I'll have to put one on order. And by the way, I had my 72, I used the silicone seals on those covers and they didn't seal worth bugger all. I ended up tearing them off and putting the cork ones back
Yep,
on.
yep, yep.
Yeah, just point of interest.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Greg Woodward writes and says, I just picked up a fully restored 62 MGA. The steering's very tight. The wheel does not return to center when you let go. That um, that's critical. So why won't it return? It's either because the left kingpin is tight, the right kingpin is tight, the rack and pinion has got grease in it or is set up incorrectly, or it's been fitted at the wrong angle, or the steering column has felt bushings in it and those are too tight. So you end up having to disassemble some stuff on that to find out what is too tight. So Greg Woodward, if you're still on, you can call me tomorrow sometime, and I'm more than happy to talk to you about that because you can't walk it back. When you go around the corner, you cannot turn that. You don't want to have to turn that steering wheel back. Absolutely.
Thanks, John. Thank you.
Is that Greg?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay. Yeah. So it's sometimes, the rack and pinion's got it looks like a grease fitting on it. Some of them
Mhm.
do, and but it's for oil.
Yeah.
So sometimes people pull them full of grease, but that there's just a bunch of individual things that can be wrong. But let me talk through with you on that because you want to get that sorted out like right away.
Yeah.
So it's safe.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, and here we got from Doc Rosefear, we got that. Yep, we got that taken care of about the popping. And here we got what Ford were you using the bellows for Napa? And so here's the old number. Ryan Massfeller's got the number on there, but it fell out of Napa's listing. I said, well, what's it changed to? And the gal I was talking to says it doesn't change, it's just gone. So, but there's some stuff out there. Okay, all right. Is there a source? We got the short wire links, we got that. Somebody said that if MGs were meant to have Webers, then Cecil Kimber would have done a deal with Mussolini. Yeah, okay. Brian, that's real cool. Okay. But the Weber carburetor, it's a really simple carburetor. Not as simple as SU, but everybody, so many people are used to them. They know what they're dealing with. And you look at an SU and especially a Stromberg, and people go, "Oh, I don't know." It's like my advice always is learn how the SU works because it's such a better carburetor. Um, so, and we're down to, I'm getting a squeak when I turn the steering wheel against the shroud. Any suggestions? Steve Shupak. In other words, you turn the wheel.
Yeah, that's it.
So you take the housing off. What year model is it?
71.
Okay, well, it's got 4 screws.
Yep.
The two in the back are 1024s. They're coarse thread.
Yep.
Don't
Yep.
even put those back in. Just don't even put them back in.
Oh, the back being against the dash panel.
Towards the dash.
Yeah, okay.
Towards the dash. And then just take the two long ones out, take the thing off, take all that wiring and make sure it's wrapped up on the steering column with,
Yeah.
and all up in there, and just put the thing back on again and push it down towards the dash and put the screws through it and hope that does it. I mean, you can always try to sand some distance off the little lip that goes underneath, but if you're using a power sander, it's going to catch the edge, and that's the end of your that's the end of your column cover. So yeah.
Fair enough.
We did all that,
Thanks.
John, and we ended up having it, but we did not send. We used a file and
Okay.
just kept it. And
All right.
no more squeaks.
Okay.
Sanding block might do it also.
Sure.
Okay.
They need a new bushing.
Hey, look at this. This is a collapsible steering column from just a minute. Let me look at that. It's about a 73, huh?
That's a MGC. I believe
Oh,
it's a 69 or
oh yeah,
68.
yeah. Okay.
But
Yep.
anyway, it needed a new bushing, so we made one.
Yeah, good. Good, good. Well, yep.
Is that a
That's
piece of teak?
No, it's I can't pronounce it. Lignum vita ligman. It's what they use in ships to pack where the propeller shaft goes out of the hull.
okay.
Hmm.
So, hey, good. Good. Well, hey, we are down to the end of the deal. It's 9:43. We've run real late. We're down to 77 diehards, but now I'm back to Doug. Doug, what number did you get at the max?
Oh, okay, John. Yeah. The max I got was 187. I was sure he would have crashed through the 200 barrier, but I think a lot of people didn't want to talk about leaks. They would have preferred to talk about parsnips, turnips, or the
Onions.
always popular rutabagas.
Plain
So
old onions.
yeah,
Very
oh,
funny.
in England they call them neeps. So, but anyway, 187 was it.
All right. I'll take that as
Is
I'll
I
take
would
that as
suggest, I would suggest we postpone the hats because in honor of the Chicago Pope, who has the best hat, namely his mitre, why don't we go with that for the hat contest tonight, John?
Oh, well, all right, but this is okay, but I gotta put my hat on anyway. So this is from Roy he brought me a different hat every year at our summer party for a couple of years. He's passed away now, but this is my London Bobby hat. So anyway, so there. Okay. So there, it's not as cool. So I told you Purvis and I worked together. When he went in the army, they ask you what religion you are, and it's stamped on your dog tag. And he said he put down Russian Orthodox. He says if I was going to be killed on the field of battle, I wanted one of those guys with the big tall hats to come out and and do last rites or whatever they do. So yeah,
Hey, is Judd still on?
Judd, you still
I'm here.
Yeah, I just talked to a buddy of yours not too long ago. I ordered some wheels from him, center cap, a Hap,
Oh,
Walter.
Hap, yeah, member of
Yeah,
our
he had
club.
he had some nice thing to say about you.
Well, he lies
we were
good, doesn't
surprised.
he?
Yeah, he told me some stories, but he's an interesting man. He really is.
Acme Speed Shop,
Yeah,
Greenville, South Carolina.
when you call him for something, you expect to spend 20 minutes, a half hour on the phone, just shooting the breeze.
Even worse if you get your face to face. Bob's going to ring in here.
And it's worth it.
Yeah, I like him. He's an interesting guy.
there's the whole community is wonderfully interesting, and it's such a nice group of people. Everybody gets along so well.
Never met a British car guy I didn't like.
Almost all the time.
Yeah, most of the time, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Alan has sworn us off from doing it on the 26th because that's Memorial Day. So I don't know. We're gonna do, or if we're gonna do another one this month. Let me look. We can't do it on the 19th because I got a customer here in town. So now we're pushing it up to about the 9th of June. I can't do it on the 2nd of June because I'm gonna be up at GT50 in Traverse City. So anyway, it'll be about the 9th, I think. So anyway, thank you everyone for being a part of this. Those of you diehards, the 69 of us who were left. And thank you very much. Don't forget to go to the PayPal, press the PayPal button, so we can continue to have more fun. And anyway, if you have any questions anytime, you can call. If I can't answer the phone, almost always I call you back. So anyway, thanks.
You've always called me back, John. I can
I
testify to that.
Thank you, John.
Thanks,
Hey.
John. Good night, John. Good night, Bob. Good night, Bob. Good night,
Good night,
whoever
Chet.
that other guy was.
Yeah.
Good
Good
night,
night, Lynn. Good night,
Good
David.
night,
Night,
David.
Chet. Night, David. Yep.
Yeah.
Say good night, Gracie.
Yep.
Good night, John boy.
I was gonna say, I think you forgot John Boy.
Yeah, I always learn something, even if I don't want to.
Yep. So Jim Pastor, hey, I'll start hawking the Central Pennsylvania British Car Show, the 31st annual, pretty soon. Soon as some of the other ones.
Carlisle this weekend, and we'll be launching it then.
Okay.
Hi, all.
It's a nice show.
Head to Carlisle.
If you've never been to Altoona, PA, because that's where they got the guy. Who's the shooter?
Me and Gioni, that's what we're known for now. The hell with railroads.
What's the date?
Weekend before Labor Day.
Yeah, it's the 24th, 25th.
And
And
don't forget
usually,
the horseshoe.
there's usually like 190 to 110 cars. Depends on the weather. Depends. But it's always nice. Jim always lays out a really nice drive, almost always. And then we used to do a gymkhana, but the past couple of years, they've gone into axe throwing. Who knows what they'll have this year? Maybe they haven't decided, but it's just fun. It's just fun, and the whole weekend. I think last year, the whole weekend, which included 2 meals, was what, $35?
Pizza party on Friday night. Saturday dinner, full dinner, pork roast dinner, and desserts. Sunday, chicken dinner, $50 a person. And we're doing a museum tour this year to Baker Mansion.
Okay.
And the theme is Casino Royale James Bond. So we've got board tables that we'll have some fun with at the Saturday night dinner. It's a good time. We're launching it. You'll be able to register on Monday. Brochures are being printed now.
And you get to watch John work on cars.
Yeah. And Bob and Gloria always come on Sunday to see John lay his hands on cars.
Can you only come one day?
You can come, yeah. You could come for Sunday, yes. That's the car show day.
Okay, and does it cost something?
CentralPABritishCar.com. CentralPABritishCar.com. It'll be up on registrations will open on Monday. Right now that the website's being updated. So we always launch it the weekend, the official date registration, the weekend of Carlisle, because we'll pass out brochures and do information in Carlisle at the import show. We'll be there for 3 days. The club.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Great show. I highly recommend it.
Ryan, why are you on my up here twice?
Oh, because I took my phone to the garage to show you Rhonda.
Right. I knew there was a reason.
You got to subtract 1 from your stats. We won't tell anybody.
Okay, right. Well, hey, it's pushing 10 o'clock. Oh my gosh, what a night. About oil leaks. and after all my explanation, I forgot all about the rack and pinion and the shocks. So until somebody brought that to my attention. So
that's for another time.
That's for another time. Yeah. All right.
Thanks,
John. Gentlemen,
have a good
thank
night.
you very kindly.
Thank you, guys.
Drive your MG, safety fast, and we'll see everyone next time.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do to your car is let it sit.
Yep.
Okay.
Drive them until the roads wear out. That's what I say.
Yeah.
All right. See ya.
See you guys.
Good night, everybody.